Jai Guru, everyone.
Jai Guru.
Hello. Welcome to the Autobiography of Yogi Line by Line podcast. We're on chapter 14 and the second part now. I'm joined by the whole crew today. How is everyone?
Excellent.
Very well.
Good.
Fantastic.
Good. Chris is being reined in, but we're not going to talk about the weather, so I'm not going to allow you to come in there. Mike, what?
The weather.
Mike, what happened in the previous episode that's setting us up now for now?
Yeah, it was kind of wrapping up the previous chapter a little bit more. So Guruji came shamefaced back to the hermitage of Sri Yukteswar, and he was expecting to be scolded for running away and leaving his duties. But instead, Sri Yukteswar said he's not disappointed because he only wants the best for his development. And Guruji found that a real proof of a guru's divine love. And they had a moment where they both had a bit of tears in their eyes. And Guruji was like so moved by this. And then we continued that a few days later, you have Guruji meditating out on the balcony, and he's having trouble maneuvering the disobedient thoughts. And then Sri Yukteswar calls him to come to his room, and Guruji is annoyed by that. He's like, I'm meditating, and then he calls him again, and then he goes to go see him, and now we'll see how this concludes.
Thank you very much. So we start with Sri Yukteswar saying, having some sympathy for Mukunda and for us, essentially saying, you know, all these avenues you're looking for in terms of spirituality. In Mukunda's case, the Himalayas is not giving him fulfillment, and I'm paraphrasing. And Sri Yukteswar spoke, and he spoke with compassion. And it says here that his gaze was his calm gaze was unfathomable, which is, I think, true even for even for the image of him in the altar. I think, for me anyway, I can't quite fathom what's behind the expression. It feels like it's different every time, even though it's one picture. You get that from Guruji, but we've got multiple pictures of Guruji, so we've got more texture there, yeah, in terms of our subconscious. But yeah, this poor boy as well is nice because you know, he's gone to Sri Yukteswar is feeling some compassion because he's gone to the Himalayas, he's gone to Ram Gopal Mazumdar, and he's had this experience of like divine love and forgiveness that he just, you know, when he came back into the ashram, and the expansion of divine love. It feels like this was kind of like a precursor to Sri Yukteswar saying this and ultimately giving him this experience, because he says your heart's desire shall be fulfilled, which is really probably one of the best things you can hear from a guru. In life, sometimes people say this to us, but it's often about like mundane things, like I don't know, if you're moving into a new place and you get the contract, or like you get the job offer that you wanted, you know, the employer might say yes, you know, and then you get this lovely experience. But imagine a guru saying this to you. It must be like a gazillion fold of that, you know, all those like peak moments of your life where you got exactly what you wanted, whether it's in your family or your friend circle or your career or whatever it is. This would just be like a drop in the ocean compared to what it would happen to you if Guruji says it to you, or in this way. So it's a very nice promise.
What I like about this moment as well is that there wasn't many words spoken from Guruji here. You know, he kind of walked in, he was given this comment like, poor boy, mountains cannot give you what you want. So his master knew exactly what was going on in his heart without him actually having to express that vocally. and his actions really spoke louder than words here, obviously. But I just like the moment where the intuition and the knowing from his guru was expressed through action, not through words.
Indeed. And good follow on to the next line, because he says that Sri Yukteswar didn't often speak in riddles or like in a confusing manner. He was very direct. So Mukunda was very bewildered. Because what could he possibly be talking about, Mike?
Yeah, when he came back from Ram Gopal's place, we thought, because Ram Gopal promised him his guru would reveal Samadhi to him, so we thought maybe it would happen right away, but it didn't. So a few days have passed now, so now it's again, it could be anything that he's talking about, but now he's bringing Samadhi back on the topic.
How many? Yeah, a few mornings later. Yes, good memory, good, well read. Says that next is, I think, a significant moment. Sri Yukteswar says, gently struck Mukunda just above the heart on the chest. Now, this is slight. We've got some experiences of this in the autobiography, both through Mukunda and other characters, other people that are mentioned in the autobiography. So this is just before a divine experience kind of takes place. And very recently, we know that Ram Gopal Mazumdar didn't need to touch him for him to have this experience, like 1% of the experience of Samadhi that he had in the previous chapter. He kind of just looked at him, and Guruji felt all that that wonderful feeling that he had when he said, I won't leave you empty-handed, and he gave that experience to him. And in terms of Lahiri Mahashaya, when he was touching, when his approach is more direct in terms of seems to be touch the spiritual eye, the forehead, because when he was healing the blind Ramu in a previous chapter, he touched him on the forehead. And when he wanted to give his wife a divine experience, similarly he touched her on her forehead, and then that gave him some divine light, or in Ramu's case, physical light. So that was like a healing, whereas his wife got a spiritual light experience. And similarly, Lahiri Mahashaya, when he was giving Sri Yukteswar the physical or the astral vision to see Babaji, who was standing at the door when Sri Yukteswar walked past him, Lahiri Mahashaya kind of touched Sri Yukteswar on the forehead, which is all very different, isn't it? Slightly different to how Sri Yukteswar is doing. And I get the feeling that it's because Mukunda is such a devotional, Paramahansa Yogananda is so of the heart, isn't he? His heart chakra must be throbbing. It feels like that's where he would need to be activated, or like the easiest door for him to have this experience for Sri Yukteswar to grant it. And then the Moima, another example in this story, she'll come a bit later in the book, when she was healing a dying disciple, Paramahansa Yogananda said that she touched him on the forehead, and then the death grip ceased, and he was healed. And going back to Mukunda, when in chapter 9, Master Mahashaya also used the heart chakra. It says it was even more aggressive. It says it was might as well read it actually, because this feels very similar. So the Samadhi experience that Master Mahashaya granted him, or the spiritual experience, you can go back and read it, the whole of it, in chapter 9, but let's read a small snippet of it. Lauren, would you like to start us off?
He gently slapped my chest over the heart. A transforming silence ensued. Just as the modern talkies become inaudible motion pictures when the sound apparatus goes out of order, so the divine hand, by some strange miracle, stifled the earthly bustle. Pedestrians, as well as the passing trolley cars, automobiles, bullock carts, and iron-wheeled hackney carriages, were all in noiseless transit. As though possessing an omnipresent eye, I beheld the scenes that were behind me and to each side as easily as those in front. The whole spectacle of activity in that small section of Calcutta passed before me without a sound, like a glow of fire, dimly seen beneath a thin coat of ashes. A mellow luminescence permeated the panoramic view.
My body seemed nothing more than one of the many shadows, though it was motionless, while the others flitted mutely to and fro. Several boys, friends of mine, approached and passed on. Though they had looked directly at me, it was without recognition. The unique pantomime brought me an inexpressible ecstasy. I drank deep from some blissful fount. Suddenly my chest received another soft blow from Master Mahashaya. The pandemonium of the world burst open my unwilling ears. I staggered as though harshly awakened from a gossamer dream. The transcendental wine was removed beyond my reach. Yeah.
So it seems Master Mahashaya gave him a bit of a slap on the chest and then slapped him back when he wanted him to come out of it. So this description, I'd like us to just bear it in mind, because Mukunda has lots of spiritual experiences through the book to this moment. But this is like, so those are kind of like snippets, as it were, with Master Mahashaya. He had that divine healing when Lady Mahashaya healed him from cholera, just by looking at his picture, and Graham Gopal Mazumdar in the previous chapter. So we got little snippets, but now compare this now to what we're about to delve into in this episode and in the next two episodes for the cosmic consciousness, or the Nirvikalpa Samadhi state. So the next couple of paragraphs is really about him reconnecting to what is actually the truth, i.e. not body consciousness. So, but the first thing to happen is that he says that his body became immovably rooted. Now, this I think is a very important starting point for his for this experience, and we've got a reading to explain why. But before we do, Mike,
I just wanted to see, do you think it's really Nirvikalpa Samadhi he's experiencing here? Because I thought the difference was that Savikalpa Samadhi is more like temporary, and Nirvikalpa is you are in this consciousness, and you can also function in the world and be in it at the same time. And I feel like he's not quite reached that state yet. It's more like he's getting a glimpse, right?
So if you, I did ponder this, but if you,
okay, cool, yeah.
If
you did, of course you did. I'm not surprised. Yeah.
But you could well be right, but obviously we don't know. But
sure. Yeah.
Essentially, the Samadhi poem, would you consider that as Savikalpa or Nirvikalpa?
I always thought that they are both the same experience. The only one is permanent and one is temporary. That was my understanding, but this might not be true.
Yeah, no, I think that's the definition. But I think from this point forward, he is self-realized. His goal of this incarnation, I think, has been achieved from this specific moment in his life. I personally think. So I think for that to happen, you have to have entered Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And like later on in this chapter, he says that in the weeks and months that followed, he dipped in and out of this state as he felt. So he didn't just stay in it. So I kind of get the feeling that he was able to experience this whether or not he was seeking it directly through a meditation or just in his waking consciousness. But obviously I'm connecting dots that is up for interpretation.
A rookie question here. But I thought when you are in the Nirvikalpa state, you can never leave it?
No.
That's not correct?
That is correct. Yeah, that is correct. Yeah. What's the problem?
That was just the question. I had a rookie question.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it as Mike mentioned that then you're in this bliss consciousness, whether you're in waking or meditation or whatever you're doing in your life. And this is kind of what we're, I don't know, listeners, what do you think? Do you think you can add your own experience to this? It'd be quite nice to read some of your thoughts as well. So yeah, back to this line about being immovably rooted and grounded and stillness. I think this is like the first precursor to what's about to follow. And stillness and forgetting the breath is obviously a little bit linked. And we've got quite a nice reading from God Talks with Arjuna, chapter 1, verses 4 to 6. Chris, would you like to read it?
Yes. Asana prescribes the necessary correct posture for yoga meditation. Though many variations have evolved, the essential basics are a steady body with straight, erect spine, chin parallel to the ground, shoulders back, chest out, abdomen in, and eyes focused at the Kutashta center between the eyebrows. The body must be still and unmoving, without strain or tension. When mastered, the correct posture or asana becomes as essential as expressed by Patanjali, steady and pleasant. It bestows bodily control and mental and physical calmness, enabling the yogi to meditate for hours if so desired, without fatigue or restlessness.
Indeed. So King seems like he'd perfected, or Sri Yukteswar kind of gave him the perfect asana there. You know, Chris?
With so many truths, it's counterintuitive, isn't it? You think, without fatigue or restlessness, that this is what it enables rather than what it might create, which sort of teaches me that there's so far to go. I just sit there and almost become more restless and more tired, but obviously I'm not doing the posture as it should be. I'm not perfecting it as it should be perfected. But it's great to see that that's the goal, or the results of the goal.
Well, that's what comes, and the next thing that comes is the breathless kind of state, because it says that breath escaped him, or like it was withdrawn from him, like some magnet. And then he said his soul and his mind lost their physical contact, and it streamed out everywhere like light, empty in an empty room from every fiber of his being, which is about being bound to the physical body and the mind, to going beyond them. And we've got another reading about this very subject and topic, again from God Talks with Arjuna. This is from chapter 4, verse 29. Lauren, would you like to read this one out? And Mike, can you follow?
Unlike the ordinary man, the yogi realizes that his life is not conditioned by exhalation and inhalation, but that the steady life force in the brain is continuously reinforced through the medulla from the omnipresent cosmic current. Even mortal man during the nightly state of sleep rises psychologically above the consciousness of breath. His life force then partially becomes still and reveals a glimpse of the soul as the deep joy of sleep. The breathless yogi, however, realizes that the state of conscious death has a far deeper and more blessed state than that bestowed by the deepest blissful superconscious sleep. When breath ceases in the Kriya Yogi, he is suffused with an incomparable bliss. He realizes then that it is the storm of human breath that is responsible for the creation of the dream wave of the human body and its sensations. It is breath that causes body consciousness.
St. Paul said, I protest by our rejoicing, which I have in Christ, Jesus our Lord. I die daily, live daily without breath. St. Paul was able to dissolve the consciousness of his dream body into the everlasting rejoicing of the Christ consciousness, when with cessation of breath and the quieting of the heart, the life force is switched off from the senses, the mind becomes detached and interiorized, able to last, to perceive consciously the inner astral worlds and supernal spheres of divine consciousness.
So there you have it, an explanation of this experience. It's like a death, but it's also like life, as is explained by St. Paul, and also in the next sentence, which is absolutely fantastic. So firstly, Guruji says that his body was, and flesh was as if it was dead. But then this is a knockout line, isn't it? Yet in my intense awareness, I knew that never before had I been fully alive. Get your highlighter out. It is just mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing, that line, isn't it? It kind of implies that we're obviously not fully alive, but almost like we're probably leaving less than 1% of the experience that we should be experiencing. Minute.
I was going to ask, what do you actually think he meant by alive? But it's the experiencing sensation. What do you think?
I think it also speaks a little bit to the question that sometimes devotees have when they get self-realized, and their soul merges back into God. Are they still around, or does it mean they will be gone? And I think the Guruji often describes that in Samadhi you feel much more alive, and you feel that you are everything and just yourself at the same time, kind of.
What do you think, Chris?
Well, if somebody isn't alive in this life, usually we check the breath, don't we? Which is a nice play on the meaning, really. Like, we check if they're breathing, and if they're not breathing, we suddenly, we obviously, with science and things now, we tend to try to verify it in other ways, but the sensory apparatus that we have are, clearly limited, and there's other means. It is interesting, like alive. I think it's connected to God, essentially, like living, to live, to truly live.
I just saw it simply as this. So this moment, it's described over 2 pages, and the poem obviously 3 or 4 pages. But I think all of it is happening at exactly the same moment. So this whole him never before had I been fully alive, I think he's describing this whole experience. But is as if it's not chronological, as it were. I think he's already experienced everything that's in the Samadhi poem, and he's describing that whole experience essentially in this line. But again, that's my interpretation. The next line is that his sense of identity was no longer just of his body, but of all the atoms, around the creation. And of course, the poem talks a lot about this and goes a lot further. The next few paragraphs are about the feeling of the expansion of his consciousness from the body and mind to further and further realms, because he says, and this is quite similar to what he experienced with Master Mahashaya, which is that he could experience people that were around distant streets, and you could see them moving gently over his own periphery, which is quite similar. So if we read what he experienced with Master Mahashaya, he said that let me just find it. My Several boys, friends of mine, approached and passed on. His body seemed nothing more than one of the shadow, though it was motionless. Others flitted to and fro. So it's in some ways it is a similar experience. Lauren?
I seem to recall, correct me if I'm wrong, because I can't find the actual piece of text, I don't have it in front of me, but when he had the experience before with in the last chapter, there was that kind of, we talked about that jarring moment that happened where things seemed to shake quite violently.
No, that's coming.
That's coming.
That's coming.
Oh.
Yes.
Then I
Last one was
reveal any
vibration.
more.
Last one was vibrations of peace.
My mistake. I will stop
being,
speaking now.
That's
What is
coming. Yeah, we're gonna talk about
That's coming.
it. Yeah. Yes, we are going to talk about it. It's coming in the 3 paragraphs down. So it says here that so his vision kind of expanded, and it kind of suggests that it was like slow motion. Even the previous experience with Master Mahashaya feels like it was slow motion, and his vision is kind of going further, like beyond physical. He's seeing through things. So it's kind of like having an MRI eye. MRI vision at your fingertip. So there's another experience of this. So he says the roots of the plants and trees also he could see through the dim layer of the soil. He could even see and experience the sap that's flowing there. Now, this whole trees is, and especially the sap as well, is used often by Guruji and by the God talks with Arjuna and other scriptures. There's upside down trees, and so there's specifically one tree that's mentioned by Krishna. So let's read that section out. This is from chapter 15, verse 1. Chris, would you like to read that?
The Blessed Lord said, they, the wise, speak of an eternal Ashvata tree with roots above and boughs beneath, whose leaves are Vedic hymns. He who understands this tree of life is a Veda knower. The same basic patterns are repeated through nature. Like the plant kingdom, all forms of animate matter have a core of life, whence branches extend to create and enliven the organism. Thus, after the Lord had enabled the earth to project trees, he fashioned human beings. His crowning creation, much like inverted trees, this correspondence is seen in the physical body's roots of hair. Cerebrospinal, sorry, I'm struggling today. Cerebrospinal, trunk, boughs of arms and legs, and nerve branches extending throughout, distributing the sap of life.
So, yeah, really nice. This Ashvata tree is a really good example, and it's a really good verse. So I encourage you to read that. But it kind of compares the circulatory system of the physical body to that of trees, and we know from modern science that is kind of true. And also, you could feel it. So in this experience, you could feel the flow of the sap of the trees and plants, which is an insane thing, isn't it? So he says everything, everything in the vicinity was exposed and before him, and he says that his image, his frontal vision, was now like panoramic, and you could see virtually everything. So it's kind of omnidirectional perception, which I really like that. The chant, I am Om. What are the different verses? Omnipresent, all pervading, all blessed. I really love this, and this line reminded me of that chant. which I like to chant as well. It kind of like affirms what you want to experience, which is in this line. So he says now he could, from the back of his, where he was standing, he could see men strolling down the lane, and he could see a white cow that was coming towards him. And this is quite cool. Reached the gate, which was open, and he observed that the cow, as if he was through his physical eyes. And then after the cow passed behind the wall of the courtyard, Mukunda could still see the cow. So there's no physical boundaries. It was all exposed. And this is the bit that Lauren was talking about now, the violent agitation. Says here that everything, his body, his Sri Yukteswar's, the house that they were staying in, the trees, everything, even the sunshine, became violently agitated and then melted again, just as sugar does when put into some water. So this is quite because everything up to now is quite peaceful and and quite nice to meditate upon. But then when you're meditating on words like violently agitated, it doesn't feel like it would fit, does it? It feels like it's like kind of like a jarring experience, I think, as Lauren expressed. But then it says it kind of melted away again. And I've got a reading about this. But Chris, before we do.
Yeah, I've heard that the sound, the oceanic sound that we're listening to in the right ear, that when it comes, it can be quite terrifying. It can be quite a lot to handle. And obviously concentration and everything like that is needed to sort of push through. But the noise effect of it could be described as violent in some way, where it is maybe a little bit unsettling. So to my mind, when I read this, I think of something similar where there's this great vibration of energy oscillating at different speeds, let's say, from what we're used to in this gross physical plane to what Guruji is experiencing. And it's that almost transition, similar to when we hear the vibration.
They described it earlier. I think it was Ram Gopal who talked about the 5-watt lamp that cannot take 1,000 watts or 1,000,000 watts or something. So now he's got the 1,000,000 watts on, right? So I think some violent agitation is part of that, I guess.
There's a reference to this agitation in, again, the same chapter as we just read out, chapter 15, verse 6, this time, of God Talks with Arjuna. Lauren, would you like to read this out?
Where no sun or moon or fire shines, that is my supreme abode. Having reached there, men are never reborn. The unmanifested realm of the omnipresent spirit is eternally free from all vibrations. Sun, moon, fire, in their cosmic and microcosmic manifestations, all belong to nature's agitated seas of cosmic vibration. Just as the eddies below a waterfall cannot disturb the reservoir of water at its source, so the eddies of vibration issuing out of cosmic consciousness cannot create commotion within it. Even the finest vibrations of light or movement are not present in the indescribably subtle, limitless sphere of the Lord's vibrationless, omnipresent bliss.
So it seemed that all creation has this agitation. It's inherent. So Mukunda is experiencing this creation and going beyond it. So he's experiencing the agitation, the violent agitation, which is inherent in this creation or in the physical manifestation of God, and then going beyond it into the cosmic consciousness, which has none of that. And then, because that's, the next line after the violent agitation is that it all melted into the luminescent sea, which is really cool. which melt, when they dissolve after being shaken or stirred in a cup of tea. And then he says that the unifying light kind of went to and fro from metamorphosing, revealing the laws of cause and effect in creation. Now, I found this quite difficult to grasp, linking the unifying light in this experience that he said, from violent agitation to melting, the unifying light in materialization, in material, in the world, and then he says he's describing it as metamorphosis, revealing the law of cause and effect creation. So whenever I heard cause and effect, obviously thought of karma, but I didn't know how you could link the unifying light to that, or the unifying force in that of God. So I found another reading, this time from the second coming of Christ, which the verse which I think we will all know, which is about the wine, Jesus making wine out of the water. And the context, which not everyone will know, was that this was actually during a marriage ceremony and in Galilee, and there was no wine there. And so the mother of Jesus and disciples kind of pleaded with Jesus for this. And this is what he responded, and this is what Guruji describes it as. Mike, would you like to read that out?
Jesus said unto them, fill the water pots with water, and they filled them up to the brim. And he said unto them, draw out now, and bear unto the governor of the feast. And they bare it. When the ruler of the feast had tasted the water, that was made wine. To Jesus, wine was not wine. It was a specific vibration of electrical energy, manipulatable by knowledge of definite superphysical laws. All of God's creation operates according to law. Events and processes governed by already discovered natural laws are no longer considered miraculous. But when the law of cause and effect operates too subtly for man to discern how something comes to pass, he calls it a miracle. The law of causation of all material manifestations can be traced to the activity of subatomic particles. But beyond that, the operation of the law of cause and effect is lost sight of. Scientists do not know why electrons and protons arrange themselves into different molecular forms to create diverse kinds of matter. Herein, nature submissively makes room for a divine intelligence, says the scientist, inasmuch as there must be some power that directs the subtle electronic, protonic bricks to arrange themselves in different combinations, creating innumerable substances in exceedingly complex configurations, including intelligent life forms. Wow.
Well read, Mike.
Turned into a physics class. Yeah, yeah.
Which it kind of is, because when this cause and effect, I mistakenly thought it was related to karma, but it's actually related to creation and the miracle of creation and being beyond it, as Jesus was, and how he was able to turn water into wine, and how Guruji is here seeing the whole picture, the cosmic picture of the unifying light and the law of cause and effect in the operation of the cosmos. Mike?
It's an interesting point that he makes here, that, when we look at things, I just look at my desk and there's like books and different surfaces and they all feel differently. But the more we go into what they're actually made out of, they're all made out of the same things. And it's really just molecules and particles being arranged in a slightly different way. And to us, it seems like completely different things, different colors, different feel, different properties. So it's all an illusion. That's what I'm saying. That's what he's saying.
Indeed. But Guruji sees beyond this illusion, and the next 4 or 5 paragraphs, he kind of connects to the source of the illusion, which is obviously God. And he says that the first section here, he says that oceanic joy came over him, and describes that as upon the calm, endless shores of his soul. Really nice. And then he says that God is this exhaustless bliss, and that his body is made up of these infinite tissues of light, which is a very wonderful description, and of course quite similar to the description of God that Yogananda does like to describe as Sat Chit Ananda, which is ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss, which is a very lovely interpretation of the defining God, which is quite difficult to do in most religions, but Yogananda seems to have done this with a lot of ease, because then he's kind of embedded the experience of that reality into all of our practices and into our daily lives. So then devotees of this path kind of don't struggle with questions of such as what is God, who is God, why did he make this creation? Yogananda answers all of it here, doesn't he? Here and in the lessons and in all of his other books and writings. So he says that now this growing experience, this growing glory, he described it, kind of became bigger and bigger, and enclosed where he was staying in the, enclosed the planet and, all of the solar system and beyond, which is really nice. And he also says floating universes. Very interesting. Very ahead of his time. Multiple universes, multiple big bangs, Mike.
Yeah, that we could do a whole episode just on that.
Whole season.
Yeah, I think that's also something that when you think of creation, you think, okay, I'll just put this on myself. I mostly think of what I usually perceive, my city, my area, maybe some other countries that I've visited before. But he says this expansion is so large that it's the planet, the solar system, galaxy, different galaxies. So it's, even though it's infinity that he's kind of perceiving, creation is huge, right? So he's expanding throughout all of creation and then beyond that, right? So it's like a whole different, a different idea of size. It's so vast that it's incomprehensible, I guess.
It is very vast, and Guruji has given us some expansion techniques to experience this line of this autobiography, to experience this Samadhi experience. And on the SRF YouTube channel, there is a wonderful meditation on this, and it's called the Guided Meditation on the Expansion of Consciousness, which I highly recommend. I forward it to my non-SRF friends often, this one as well. So I'll put a link to that on the description for you. So going on, he's saying now this whole creation, this whole universe or the cosmos, he could see as if like afar, and he could see it glimmering within himself. Phenomenal. So he's gone out and he's seen it like from within as well. Mind-blowing. And then he says that this dazzling light beyond the sharply etched global outlines faded slightly at the farthest edges. There I saw a mellow radiance, ever undiminished. Really profound. It's like a halo, isn't it, on the edge of your consciousness, and he's saying that everything was within it, and is the boundary between what's you and the observer and the observed is kind of just merges, which is really profound.
might be, I don't think it's comparable at all, but I think one of the fascinations of stargazing is when you go into a place that is outside a city and you suddenly look up at the sky and you see all those stars. And you look at, this is like, you see like the whole Milky Way in front of you. You feel like, oh my God, like if you are in the right consciousness, it feels like your mind is expanding by just looking at that. And he probably went through this times 1,000.
Indeed. And he said it was this halo or this radiance was very, very subtle, he was saying, indescribably so. And he's saying that he also says that these planetary pictures were formed of a much grosser light. So this is like kind of astral, isn't it? Beyond the physical gross light, but into an astral radiance, which he doesn't use the word astral yet, but he's going to describe it later on, isn't it? Astral and causal, which is important for us in our teachings. And then there's a footnote here about this grosser light, which refers to chapter 30 in this Autobiography of Yogi, where light as the essence of creation is explained. And in that, there's a few important paragraphs which I think relate to this, where Guruji quotes the Bible, "Let there be light, and there was light," and essentially creation was formed. And then he says that he quotes St. John. He says, "Devotees of every age testify that God is as a flame and light," and he says that his eyes were as a flame of fire, St. John says, and his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. Really, really profound. And then he goes on in that same very, very comprehensive chapter about creation and light and the law of miracles, about the vibrations and the composition of matter. And then he quotes again the Bible, "If therefore thine eye be single, then thy whole body shall be full of light." And he obviously describing the experience of liberation there and the all-seeing, omnipresent omniscience, and through light essentially. But yeah, I encourage you to just skip forward to chapter 30 because it kind of expands this. I know it's already quite a hard chapter to read, but if Guruji has quoted us to further go forward and come backwards, then I think we're kind of obliged to do so. So the next sentence is that those rays poured from an eternal source, says, they formed galaxies and ineffable auras. And he says repeatedly he saw those beams condense into the constellations as we know them, and then resolve into transparent flame. So he's kind of seeing the whole whirlwind of creation coming and going, coming out and then going back, black hole, compressing again. And then he says, but he doesn't describe it as a negative experience. He says that it was rhythmic, describes it by rhythmic reversion. All these worlds were created, and he says, then fire became firmament. Really complex, isn't it? Sextillion worlds passed into diaphanous luster. Then fire became firmament. Chris?
How many zeros are there in 1 sextillion? Yeah.
I'm going to say 10 to the 18.
Oh, well done. 18
Oh,
zero. 18 zero.
Wow.
Good.
Pat Guruji's patting me on the back.
It's quite a specific number in a sense, isn't it?
Yes. It is. Because we have a billion, 10 to the 9, isn't it? And then this is times 2, so billion.
Yeah.
So basically a number that is unimaginable.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what do you take? I can't really decipher this. Then fire became firmament. Any clues? Any thoughts?
Scientifically, they talk about the radiation, the radiation in the background of the universe that sort of tells us that the universe is expanding or something. Is it the red? We call it the wavelets of red something. I'm sort of rambling here a little bit, but in a sense, it's sort of the mildew of the energy of the universe or something. Being this sort of fiery, embery vision in his mind. I don't know. Beautiful, poetic.
Well, for me, English as a second language, I had to Google all of those words basically and look them up. And firmament was kind of described as like the sky, but in a biblical sense, as it was created in the Genesis as something tangible. And then when fire becomes that, sounds like part of the Genesis. I don't know on which day God created the sky and the sun, and then this word diaphanous luster. I was like, what is that? And it says it refers to a surface that is both delicate and light transmitting with a soft shimmery appearance. I was like, okay.
I think you did well with your research there. Chris, you may have been talking about redshift.
Yeah, the redshift. Thank you, praying scientific mind there. Yeah, when I heard it, I just thought of the redshift. I don't know why, but the fire and red.
I think that's when redshift is when things are coming towards you. It compresses. Is that the wavelength compresses?
I thought the other way around, but
the other way around. Yeah,
I think blue shift is when it comes towards us. And red shift.
Yeah, it's the elongation of the wavelengths or something is red.
Yeah, that would make sense. So it's kind of seeing this whole creation expanding and convulsing and then compressing back into one, isn't it? And he's probably using, as Mike says, a biblical interpretation of fire, because when creation kind of goes back into itself, a lot of heat is generated, isn't it? A lot of energy is generated. So you could be talking about that. But yeah, listeners, do weigh in, especially if you've got some scientific background. It'd be nice to have that. Mike?
Is that the ultimate red pill experience, the Samadhi, when you suddenly look creation under the hood and you see how everything is working? And then even if you come back from the Samadhi state, I think life will never be the same after this, right? Because you've seen how it really is.
But after you have this experience, you do not come to the realization that, Mike, there is no pill.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh gosh, Matrix geeky
Love it.
Matrix jokes. Yes, it's true though, isn't it? These kind of Matrix and so many films have really taken on these writings from Yogananda and others and made it into cinema such that we can like really ponder life and creation and the cosmos and everything, isn't it? So it's quite nice that they do that, but then they don't reference it. But in sorry,
did they actually take inspiration from Yogananda's writings?
No, I'm talking about Indian writing, but I think they definitely did, because I think which one? I think it was the third film. If you carry on listening to the credits, you'll hear that they turn a mantra into this epic song, It goes Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Yeah. So these are ancient Sanskrit chant. They could put it into which is from untruth to truth, from darkness to light. All these very important Hindu philosophies that in Guruji's writings, and also in the Vedas and other scripture. They've kind of here and there they've referenced it where they can, without dissuading the general public from watching it, because they don't want to make it any one specific religion. Yeah, Chris.
I mean, not to geek out in the Matrix too much, but they did get a lot of inspiration from other like martial arts films that were inherently Asian, anime martial arts films like that. And they based a lot of their pieces on that, which the Asian culture and the religions, things like that, probably would have eked into it. Just to come back to you on that, it's pretty cool.
I think the Matrix might be inspired by Hinduist ideas, or not. I think so, but at least it created a vocabulary that is useful to explain to people what you're talking about. So I think it's definitely useful in that sense.
Yeah, but when you explain it, the problem is a lot of people say, "Oh, I'll take the blue pill. I don't want to care about all that other stuff." I'm enjoying.
Well, that's a choice then. Yeah, that's fine.
I'm enjoying all this temporary pleasure and pain. Who wants to? Yeah. Anyway, let's not go there.
Yeah, there's even a guy in the Matrix, right? Who does a deal with the Matrix so he can go back and have a great life there, right?
What's his name? He's got a cool name.
I forgot. It's too long ago.
Anyway, going back. So next he says that this whole experience he perceived to kind of focus in. He experienced it at the point in the heart, which is where he's been touched or prodded by Sri Yukteswar in this experience. So all of this, he wasn't visualizing it in his third eye or in his vision, actually seeing that he was experiencing it at the heart, the Anahata chakra.
That's where we receive God, right? So we send out at the spiritual eye and we receive at the heart center. And I had a discussion with some young adults after the Govindananda talk at Convocation, where he kept saying that we should, when we meditate, we should focus on the heart and feel the heart. And then he also said we should focus on the spiritual eye and on the heart, and what is the difference. And we talked about this, and a lot of them said that it's a lot more comfortable focusing on the spiritual eye, because there you always feel like this positive energy, and when you feel the heart, you feel what's ever at the heart right now. It's like you can't control it. So it's a thing that takes a bit more patience and a bit more you really have to go through the things that come out of the heart, and then after a meditation is a time when actually you receive this kind of joys, states, and then when you can actually enjoy them in the heart, then the state becomes much stronger.
Where does the medulla fit into that then, Mike? Because if the spiritual eye is a transmitting station, doesn't Christ consciousness enter through the receiving station of the medulla oblongata as well?
The Bhagavad Gita writes a lot about that, right? I think that is the spiritual eye a reflection of the medulla or something like that?
They are the reflections,
Yeah.
polar reflections or something along those lines, yeah.
I've never tried to, I mean, when you do the energization exercise, you're supposed to focus on the medulla, right?
Yeah, you're receiving the life energy.
Yeah, but other than that, I hardly ever do. Yeah, not doing meditation.
It's much easier to experience the heart chakra, isn't it?
Depends.
like you have to meditate. Well, I do quite long and deeply to experience anything up here. But you can read something profound and moving from Guruji's writing or from metaphysical meditations or whispers from eternity, and it kind of just prods you straight away. Like you don't need to even be in like a place of stillness. You can just be like you could be just on the bus and just think of an affirmation, and then you can just feel it, feel that tenderness right there, melting sensation. Sometimes I like to describe it as. So yeah, I feel like it's easier, and that's why Guruji kind of says that devotion, meditation plus kriya plus devotion, isn't it? Because they both will get you there, but together it's like a unstoppable force.
For me, it's the other way around.
Oh, yeah?
For me, it's For me, it's easier to focus up here than to focus on the heart during meditation.
Oh yeah, during meditation, but I'm talking about like experiencing something. Like, can you not like if Guruji's talking about something, doesn't your heart like kind of just open up when you hear Guruji's voice talking about something profound?
I usually when I get this kind of withdrawing energy that comes to me, I usually feel it up here and not at the heart.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because like often we're told to look at Guruji's image, isn't it? And then your eyes are open, so it's really hard to then focus at the spiritual eye with your eyes.
Yeah, but I start feeling a warmth up here, and I don't know why. It's just,
very nice.
For me,
very nice.
Like that. Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, each their own, eh?
Yeah, different, I guess.
So the next line is that he says that this splendor, he kind of came out from every part of the universe essentially, and he called it the blissful Amrita, which is the Sanskrit word for the nectar of immortality, which he describes in the next words. And he says it came, pulsated through him, Mukunda, with quicksilver-like fluidity. So real nice feeling of the bliss. I think we were talking what Mike was talking about in the spiritual eye and what I was talking about in the heart center. This is the same Amrit. Where are you feeling it? The nectar of immortality, this blissful feeling. And he says the next line, the creative voice of God I heard was a resounding as Om, the vibration of the cosmic motor. And we, of course, we practice listening for the Om chant through one of our techniques. And this Om chant kind of, according to God Talks with Arjuna and other Guruji's writings, there's 6 astral centers or chakras. And if we meditate deeply, then we kind of hear the successive chakra sounds. So it could be the music that sounds like a bumblebee, or the flute, or the harp, gong bell, or a sea roar. And that's what Chris was saying earlier. It can be unsettling when the whole symphony of that astral orchestra descends upon you. But it's very not easy. But the beginner in meditation will experience one of them, the bumblebee or the flute Guruji describes, but the whole symphony may take much longer. So yeah, that's the Om vibration. And he says that the 5 elements are macrocosmically present in the universe and microcosmically operative in the body, which is why we spend all this time on the Om. And it's a very wonderful meditation. Chris and I favorite, isn't it? Especially for wandering thoughts and distractions. And the footnote on this section is, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And in the previous episode, we talked about the Word, so we shan't go any further than that on that. So that really, I think we should end it there. We've been going for over an hour now. Unless anyone's got anything else to say on what we've gone through to now, till on this episode. No.
Do you know that last quote, Priyank? I don't know why, but it's one of my favorite.
Which one?
Bible. In the beginning is the word. It's just so simplistic, so beautiful. Love it every time. It makes me smile.
Word with a capital W, not word. What's the word on the street? Tell us what's happening next section, Chris.
So next section, we're going to see the sort of coming back down to earth, as it were. The disappointment, as Guruji described as unbearable. So we'll read about that. We'll also read about the balance of living. How Sri Yukteswar gave Guruji a task to sweep the balcony and walk by the Ganges as soon as he came out, so that he didn't get lost in the ecstasy, essentially. And give him there's some really great insights there. Essentially, the guidance of the Guru. And to Mike's point, I think it was that you said earlier, Mike, about Guruji, how he was able to go back into this experience, essentially when, as Guruji described it, is whenever as he stilled his thoughts, he could have this experience again. We'll also look at the importance of the master and how they bestow the experience onto a disciple, but only whenever they strengthen the mind, so it's not to be overwhelmed by the experience, and how it's also inevitable for the sincere devotee to be able to reach this state. And finally, we're going to look at the intense cravings that pull at God with this irresistible force that sets us up for the poem, the Samadhi poem, in the following part. Nicely. Mike?
I don't know if I should ask that question, really. I'll take it back. I'll save it for next time.
Offline. Okay.
Yeah.
Make a note of it, lest you forget.
I won't forget that one.
Oh, can't wait.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, listeners. And
That's a
viewers,
cliffhanger.
and the three of you. And most importantly, thank you for Guruji. And we shall see you next week.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Guru.